Hello, dear subscribers and visitors to World Briefing. Michael Basuku here, obviously, on the back of the conclusion of the two-day Leaders Summit, G20 Leaders Summit here in Johannesburg, South Africa. The conclusion of a very busy week in South Africa, not only Sherpas and delegations trying to get a joint declaration together. There was also a social summit and many other events, but very importantly, today marks the end of an entire year of the chairmanship of South Africa of the G20, first time that has ever happened on the African continent, so kudos to them. And, it's very interesting. I've attended a lot of summits, and some are good, some are bad, some don't have declarations at the end, maybe watered down letters of intent, what have you. But the one issue today, you may see it scrolling by, was pretty substantive, was pretty lengthy, covered everything from debt relief to climate change to conflicts. And I wanted to zero in on that a little bit because near the top of their final declaration, which by the way was agreed to by all G20 members, 20 member states by consensus. And don't forget, that includes China, India, Russia, Canada and others, European countries, states that don't always see eye to eye, but it was with the absence of the United States. They boycotted this G20. But the G20 leaders did call for peace in the following conflicts and wars in the final declaration, and they included Sudan, Democratic Republic of Congo, occupied Palestinian territories, and Ukraine. And they said in the declaration, only with peace will we achieve sustainability and prosperity. And as expected, there was no condemnation of war crimes being committed in Gaza, but especially by the Russians in Ukraine. Russia was part of this process. To give you a little bit of flavor, I guess, on why this happens, is I did approach the Minister of Trade and Industry of South Africa earlier today, and I asked him, so, what's your feeling? Will Russia possibly ever come back into the G7, which will become G8? And he said, yeah, why not? And I asked him, really, after launching a full-scale invasion of Ukraine? He goes, well, his almost exact words were, it's better to have people in the room than outside. Perhaps, I don't know, but we do know for a fact that Donald Trump has certainly had no problem giving Vladimir Putin the stage, or Russia the stage, in other fora. And that was the other thing today. I mean, that was kind of the elephant in the room. There was a lot of activity on the sidelines of the summit and in Switzerland now, with European leaders meeting there to try and hammer out some kind of approach. With the Americans, I believe, will be there. Yes, they will, to the so-called 20-plus point peace plan that was put together apparently by the Americans, or maybe it was given to them and authored by the Russians. We just don't know. There's a lot of back and forth reporting on this. People like Marco Rubio saying that, yeah, it was American authorship, and then it was later denied and backtracked. It's very, very confusing. But at the end of the day, if this proposal, which is very, very heavily tilted in favor of Russia, and which would render Ukraine, if all of the points were adopted, game over in terms of their sovereignty, it's just a disaster. So we will see how this comes out. There are now signals coming out of Washington that the Americans will allow input from the Europeans, input from the Ukrainians. It appears Russia has had a lot of input. But like I said on CNN and other broadcasters, and I did spend a lot of time, by the way, talking to South African media, because I thought it's really, really important to give them a perspective from someone who's spent so much time in Ukraine, is anyway, what is really important here is that Ukraine have maximum input as well, because should these, even I think a portion of this peace proposal be adopted, it would be the end of Ukraine as we know it. And, some of these demands, including territorial gains by Russia, the reduction of the Ukrainian military, the size of the Ukrainian military, no more NATO membership bid. I think they're also calling for elections within 180 days, a whole bunch of things there that are totally unacceptable to Kiev. So let's see where things go. I do have to note that the Zelensky team, President Zelensky did send Chief of Staff Andriy Yermak to Switzerland to represent Ukraine. There's a lot of blowback on that, and for good reason, I think. A lot of analysts, including myself, think that he just doesn't get diplomacy and what's at stake. You hear from others that they think he's a puppet of Russia. Others will say he's just incompetent. And, this is happening off the back of this huge, still ongoing corruption scandal where I think Yermak has to take responsibility for what happened. So a lot of people are questioning Mr. Zelensky's rationale in terms of sending him, whether, he's got it all together upstairs to make that type of decision. Where it would have been far, far better to send another envoy or the Minister of Foreign Affairs, or better yet, rehire the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Kuleba, and send him to get the job done. I do think there's a growing sense on the ground here that countries are learning to get their footing when it comes to dealing with a very bullying White House under Mr. Trump, someone who likes to threaten and bully with tariffs and other means, or a threatened takeover of a certain country. We in Canada know that. And, I was asked on South African media, what else besides the declaration happened here? And it could be that, maybe it's a good thing that these countries, big and small, huddle and they find out what might be the best approach. And maybe they talk to Mr. Lula from Brazil and say, hey, how's it working out for you that you're standing up to Mr. Trump? So that could be a good thing. But we've also talked to many, many people on the ground here. And at the end of the day, these final declarations are, again, statements of intent, but it comes down to political will. If you say, for example, conflicts have to end, or there has to be more equality, more security, it's up to leaders to gather up the political will within themselves and among their political kind of sphere to get things done. That's where I don't think things can happen very quickly. I think I'm going to end it there, and I am trying this new video format for a second day in a row. Let me know what you think. Again, apologies for the tiredness and perhaps a lack of coherence, but it's been 2 very, very long days. But I did want to give you a flavor from the ground here. Oh yes, and one piece of breaking news, you can see the tweet, is we sat through the press conference with President Erdogan of Turkey, and he did remind us that he met with Mr. Zelensky earlier in Ankara, and that he will be telephoning Vladimir Putin tomorrow to talk about the war in Ukraine, but also perhaps the opening up of widening of Black Sea corridors, that type of thing. He spent a lot of time slamming the Israelis for what he called their genocidal actions in Gaza, no surprise there. But I didn't get the chance, I wish I had, to ask him, look, with the criticism of the United States in this whole Ukraine peace process, this ridiculous plan that seems so heavily tilted in terms of Russia, would you be willing, if approached, to assume the role of the key interlocutor between Kiev and Russia? Turkey is a huge stake in Black Sea security, big investments in Ukraine, big investments in Russia, Russian investments in Turkey, and they seem well placed to take over the mantle, I think, to move the peace process further. I think the Turks are very practical. I've worked with them before in the OSCE, so let's see what happens. But I think the time for the United States major involvement in this is game over. I think that the Ukrainians say we'd rather not agree to this peace plan. The last thing that should happen is the United States withdraws intelligence sharing and also the delivery of weapons system. That would be a disaster for Ukraine, given how heavily Russia is pounding Ukrainian cities, towns, and villages at the moment. Thank you very, very much. Once again, those of you who are not paid subscribers, please do consider subscribing. It does support my reporting and commentary mission. And due to others about World Briefing, we've had a lot of new subscribers over the past 48 hours. And there are other ways to support too, via my Patreon community and via PayPal as well. But once again, thank you. It's a real privilege for me to come down so far to report on what's going on here on the ground and give you some perspective. And hopefully you'll walk away from this video and the normal newsletter feeling a little bit more spring in your step in terms of, I know why this is happening in the world. Take care. Bye-bye.